We have a siren in Tel Aviv. We have to go now. We have a siren in Tel Aviv. We're going to be coming back.
Good way to explain what we're going through.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to start in just about 2 minutes. Some of the people on our panel currently had to leave because there's a siren in Tel Aviv, and we'll be back. And that is the reality that we're obviously all dealing with. So we'll start in just about 2 minutes. Hello, everybody. I'm David Weinstein. I'm the executive director of Camp Tel Yehudah and the teenage camp of Young Judaea. Some of our panelists right now and our moderator have had to leave as there are sirens going off in Tel Aviv right now, where some of them are located. So that nothing, I think, puts a highlight on what we're doing more than that. So we'll go with it. I just want to welcome you all here on behalf of Tel Yehudah and Young Judaea. About a year ago, less than a year ago, a few months ago, I was reminded of a song that we sang in my Alamim play at Camp Tel Yehudah in 1978. I was reminded because there was a piece in Times of Israel, my friend Scott Copeland had written, talking about the song by Shlomo Artzi, Pitom Kamadam Baboker Umargish Shehu Umatchil Alechet Ulecho Hanifgash Darko Koreh Shalom. It was the first Israeli album I ever bought. And we sang it. Translation: suddenly a man wakes up in the morning, he feels he is a nation, and begins to walk. And to all he meets on his way, he calls out Shalom. I was thinking about that song again today as we were preparing for this conversation about taking action. and about the incredible actions of the nation that people started taking immediately after the attacks on October 7th. And that's what our panel is about today, is about how people have gotten up, began to walk, and take action and make change. We just celebrated 75 years of Tel Yehudah just a few weeks ago, before all of this began. And for those 75 years, action has always been at the heart of what we do and at the heart of what we've done in Young Judaea for over 110 years. And today we're going to get a chance to hear from people, both young Judeans, old young Judeans, and people who are going to be brand new to Young Judaea today, about the actions they take. And it's a real testament to Israel and a testament to what we've been doing all these years. I want to have an opportunity to introduce Miriam Hirschlag right now, who's going to be our moderator. I don't think Miriam's with us at the moment. I imagine she is in her safe room. So I'll say a few words about Miriam, and then we're gonna, as we do in summer camping, we're gonna pivot a bit and make this all work, and I'll play moderator a little bit. But Miriam, hopefully coming back soon, from Montclair, New Jersey, where I'm sitting right now, and I was just downtown in Montclair where there was a table set up in this little town in North Jersey, a table set up for the hostages in the middle of town. And I'll be going over the vigil there when we're done here. And she's originally from the town of Montclair. She's also the opinion and blogs editor of the Times of Israel and a frequent panelist on the Promise podcast, which I just listened to her yesterday, hosted by Noah Ephron, also from Young Judaea. In the past, she's been a reporter, an anchor, an editor at Israel's IBA English TV and Radio News, and a training manager at Given Imaging, a pioneering medical device company. She grew up in New Jersey, Young Judaea. She was an active Young Judean in Madrasa at Tel Yehudah, and she's lived in Israel since 1987. And I don't know if she's back. She is back. Oh, this is perfect timing. So I'm going to turn things over to Miriam Hirschlag, and later on we'll hear from my old friend Miriam Schler as well. And glad to see that our friends in Tel Aviv are back online. Miriam Hirschlag, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little out of breath because my bomb shelter is a run out of the house and down the stairs. Let me just fix a few settings here that got lost in the shuffle. Great. Well, it's incredibly moving for me here in Tel Aviv to be in community with so many people with whom I share connections, whether or not we know each other personally. The chance to be together means more to me right at this very minute than it ever has. And I'm just grateful we could gather, even if it's in digital space and not sitting in a circle on the grass near the Delaware River. 30 days ago, hours after the missile sirens woke us up, the first video images I saw were taken from a smartphone through the window of an apartment building in Ofakim, which is a small town in the Negev Desert, 6 miles from the Gaza border. I saw a truckload of heavily armed terrorists dressed in black driving onto a suburban street and jump out to go hunting house to house. I was shocked. I went over to my husband. I said, "Those poor people," and I broke down crying. Of course, now we know that was just the tip of the iceberg. 3,000 terrorists poured into Israel on October 7th. They slaughtered 1,400 people. They kidnapped 240 people, including babies and elderly. They destroyed more than 20 communities. And since that day, with a brutal war underway in Gaza, Hamas has fired more than 9,000 rockets, I guess 9,000 and however many were just now, these few minutes ago, into Israel. And the death toll in Gaza is horrendous. And more than 20 IDF soldiers have been killed. 250,000 Israelis from communities near Gaza and along the Lebanon border have been evacuated from their homes. Many more have self-evacuated. It very quickly dawned on every single Israeli that the government and its public institutions were not remotely able to address the massive needs that we faced so suddenly and at such scale. And what happened was that every single Israeli jumped to do something. Today, we're going to hear from a few of the more than 1,000 organizations that pivoted from their usual mission and reinvented themselves to form the infrastructure of the largest national aid effort in our history. In World War II, Operation Dynamo, the operation to evacuate wounded from Dunkirk, lasted for 9 days. The people we'll hear from today are the fleet of little ships, and they have been sailing in these choppy waters for 30 days with no shore in sight. So let's hear from our amazing panel members now. And you guys, I'm going to start by asking you to introduce yourselves and describe what the moment was when you knew what you personally had to do in this crisis. So first we have with us Liad Suez Carney. She's on the board of directors of Bonot Alternativa. That's Women Building an Alternative in English. And it's an organization that was prominent in the pro-democracy protests against the judicial overhaul of Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Hi, Liad. Can you tell us briefly about that moment when you knew what your job is? Tell us what you're doing and tell us about that moment.
Yeah, so hi everybody. Nice to be here. I woke up like everybody at 6:30 in the morning. I was with my daughter in Jaffa on a vacation. And my first thought was, oh my God, we have Bruno Mars concert tonight and we're gonna miss it. Little did we know that was the least of our problems. By the time I got home to Yehudah a few hours later, we already knew the magnitude, or at least some of the things that were going on. And basically in Bonot Alternativa, our management group started WhatsApping. I think by 10 or 11, we figured out that there's going to be a lot of evacuees and we need to find room for them. So right away, we joined with other protest groups like Brothers in Arms and the Pink Front. And we send out a message to families that want to receive families from down south to sign in. And then basically for families that want to evacuate and start making those connections. But soon thereafter, we figured that it's even bigger than that. And we started getting, because we're a grassroots network, we're over 100,000 women in WhatsApp groups since the protest. We started getting information such as, my nieces and nephews are stuck in a safe room near Gaza. Please send somebody to help them. And we would send that message to Brothers in Arms that literally went and got them. So quickly, it was just trying to do whatever we could to help. And luckily, we were so networked already and in such great relationships with the other protest groups that we were able to kind of help really, really quickly. And the next day we started basically saying to people, we're going to need supplies, just bring supplies, clothes, baby formula, anything you can think of, just bring it to our warehouses. There was such a long line of cars that our warehouses were too small. So we called Brothers in Arms and they're like, bring it to the expo. We have a huge parking lot there, just bring it there. And then
Brothers in Arms, right? Brothers in Arms being a major organizing group in the pro-democracy movement.
Yes. And they're more military based. We're more female rights based, and the combination is really good between us. And so Brothers in Arms took care more about the stuff that the military needs, and we took care more of the stuff that the evacuees would need. If it's a hug, if it's babysitting the kids, if it's organizing supplies, if it's really anything you can think of, just being there. And we have, again, because we're grassroots, we have 80 cities that we have leaders, women leaders there, and they would go, after a few days, they got to the hotels. So if it's a hotel, if it's any place that they are, the evacuees were there to help them. And also women that are, their husbands are in the army now. So we're just trying to be there, be a force for good, and empower and support, and have basically a care network to women and families everywhere, really.
Thanks, Liad. I'm going to go now to Amit. Amit Ben-Ami is with the Tzedek Centers. That's part of, that's an initiative of the Hashomer HaTzair youth movement. And Amit is partnerships director at the Tzedek Centers movement. And he's from Jerusalem and lives where we all just heard sirens here in Tel Aviv. Amit, tell us a little about what you're doing and when you knew what you knew.
Thank you, Miriam, and hi, everyone. So I think both in Tzedek Centers is a national grassroots movement that was established by Hashomer HaTzair graduates. And there's also, of course, the Hashomer HaTzair youth movement, and there's also the Hashomer HaTzair alumni movement in Israel, which is a network of urban kibbutzim with about 500 members. And every time there is a military operation or emergency crisis, let's say we know the drill. I mean, we have things that we do every time there's a military operation. We send educational teams to the shelters down south, or we organize voluntary activity. And I think at the first moment, we were like, okay, we're getting ready to do the same thing, to send teams to the shelters in Ashkelon, Beersheba. But as Liad said, I mean, throughout that terrible Saturday, it became pretty quickly more clear that this is a completely different situation. The kibbutzim on the Gaza envelope, 9 of them are Hashomer HaTzair kibbutzim. So these are really our communities that were severely hit. So there's many Hashomer HaTzair youth members or their parents or alumni of the movement, which were either murdered or kidnapped or are now missing. And so basically, our first reaction was to just bring it all together, all our work, Tzedek Centers, Hashomer HaTzair, also including the Arab section of Hashomer HaTzair called the Ajial movement. Our work can be divided to 3 main parts right now. One is taking care of finding shelter and housing for evacuated families, both opening the seminar centers that we run in Givat Chaviva or the Tzafit Regional School, or a headquarters that we run that connects volunteers who want to host families and evacuated families, with over 1,500 calls answered already. I mean, families that found a place to stay. So that's one part, the housing. Another is the educational aid. So all the kibbutzim and communities that were evacuated to hotels, we've sent 12 different teams of movement educators to open an educational system for these communities. So in every hotel, in Eilat, in the Dead Sea, in Kibbutz Nachsholim, in Chadera, all over the country, teams of educational managers, lakazim, and volunteers, because these communities have nothing in those hotels. I mean, they have a place to stay, which is a lot, but nothing as in activity. So we run the whole educational system there, and developing it now, which is something I can elaborate on later. And the third part is working on shared society, and specifically de-escalation of violence between Jews and Arabs within Israel. This is also something that we've had past experience in times of tension in 2021 and 2022. But now we're getting ready for something a lot bigger, because we're anticipating that now in the coming weeks is the real danger in severe violence, with forces trying to, of course, ignite this violence of extremists within Israel. So that's another part, doing a lot of local organizing and a wide public campaign to de-escalate violence and encourage trust and cooperation.
Thanks. And just so people understand the scale, the city of Eilat has more than doubled in population as a result of receiving this huge influx of displaced people. There are other concentrations, but that's a huge concentration, and it's very hard to almost conceive of what that impact is on the resources of Eilat as a city. And speaking of places that have received displaced people and risen to action, we're going to hear now from Leah Kamen, who is at our beloved Kibbutz Keturah. She's from Missouri. She is, has no role, because why would you put your tafkid down when you're on a kibbutz? It's just written Chaz HaShachar for Leah, but for many of us, Leah's a very, very familiar and beloved face. Really happy to see her, Leah.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting us. I actually wanted to start off by not so much going back to October 7th, but to tell everyone who knows that this week, Kibbutz Keturah was established. And this would have been, I mean, it seems almost crazy to even think about it. This would have been the week in which all of the kids from the kibbutz come down, and we had original plays and activities and all kinds of looking inward at ourselves and having a huge celebration. I mean, this last month has turned everyone's world upside down. This is, of course, no time for any of us to look inward at ourselves, but rather to look outward. And fairly immediately, actually, from already, I guess, the night of Motzei Shabbat of October 7th, it was clear that we were in a unique position to help people who really needed help. And it's in some ways somewhat ironic, because I said 50 years ago, the kibbutz was founded during the Yom Kippur War. And Keturah was set up on the border with Jordan, because at the time the border with Jordan was not a peaceful border. And it was important for the government to set up kibbutzim here. But today, we live in one of the safest places in Israel to live. And we were in a unique position that straight away, I mean, I was a little bit not quite aware during the day of what was going on, but all of the guys who were called up to go to the army, and everybody's all over the kibbutz with baskets of like sheets and towels and cleaning materials, and virtually, overnight we managed to turn every possible apartment that we had available on the kibbutz into places where we could absorb people who were coming first directly from kibbutzim and settlements in the area around Gaza, and pretty much in the first week after the kibbutz, we doubled the size of our population. By the first Friday night after the horrors of October 7th, we had absorbed 215 people outside the guest rooms. Inside our guest rooms, we also absorbed another 185 people. So we really doubled the size of our population pretty much in the first week, and we've pretty much maintained that. You're going to be hearing from Clara, who's sitting here next to me. 2 days after the war, Young Judaea Year Course decided to come down to be here with us, and they've been here ever since. And this has been a huge effort. I mean, it's hard to say that you're fortunate, but for us, I mean, so much of what we could be doing now is sitting in front of the television, being depressed, being worried, doing, of course, all we can to bring the hostages home and to finish this war. But to sit around and be depressed is certainly one thing to do, but to be able to feel like you can really do something. And I think all of us on this panel, and communities all over the country have come together in amazing ways. And we really are fortunate to be in a position to really, really help people. And we have been able to take in families. Our first priority was just to provide beds and sheets and towels and food and just the basic needs. And then afterwards, we realized we need to provide programming, and we need to provide activities, and we need to find a safe place for children to be. And even today, we opened our first official sort of Gan Yeladim, a kindergarten for all of the children who are here. And I'm talking about 85. And for first to sixth graders, we've started a school for the refugees, displaced people. And it's not only from the area around in Ashkelon and Ashdod and that whole area, but we're talking about also people from the north who are also being afraid and being attacked from Hezbollah in the north. And so we're now absorbing people from the Kiryat Shmona area and Nahariya and all of the Galil. So our kibbutz is, we're doing what we can to try and help the people who really, really need us. Obviously, a lot of our guys, a lot of our members have gone off to fight. We're, of course, very concerned about them. We're very concerned about the hostages. There's nobody in this country who hasn't had someone they know who hasn't been killed or taken hostage. That's also the case with me and with other people here at Keturah, but we're doing at least the best that we can. We can talk a little bit more about that, but at least we're in a position to help people who really, really need it now.
Thanks, Leah. Miriam Schler, another young Judean, is the executive director of the Tel Aviv Sexual Assault Center. I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to let her speak, but her work, like everyone's work here, is God's work. I've been following it a little more closely than other people here on the panel, so I can tell you it's just tremendous, and most importantly, I think Miriam was my chanicha at some point. So that that's really, I'm always very proud of her, because clearly I taught her everything. Miriam, how you doing? And tell us a little bit about.
I must say that you had a huge impact and influence on me, Miriam, as my machon madricha, and you did teach me everything. So thank you for that. And I'm very touched to be here. And I can't see anyone else who's out there on that panel, but I'm sure that there are people that I know and love. So thank you, first of all, for being with us. October 7th for me was, as everyone in Israel, was extremely traumatic on a lot of levels. First of all, I was in Sinai the night before, and we were supposed to come back on Saturday. We decided to come back on Friday. So I was just basically, a lot of my efforts were in thanking God that I wasn't in Sinai on the day of the attack. And we were also woken up at 6:30. It was my son's birthday. I was also worried about where we're gonna celebrate. At the end of the day, that didn't seem like a very relevant question. And I said, and another part of it was, I think it's the embodiment of the Israeli story. I mean, it's the collective trauma and the individual trauma. My parents are Holocaust survivors. So all the images that we had of people hiding in the closets and not having the army come. And I was basically, the first image I have of myself is just screaming at the television and screaming in complete feeling of helplessness and not understanding. Because we all know here in Israel, in the back of our heads, that Tzahal, the IDF, is always going to protect us, and that's what the kitot konanut, or these how do you say that in English? I don't know, the
Patrols.
The patrols,
Community
patrol. The community patrols. Their guidelines are that they're supposed to hold the fort down for about 10 minutes until the army comes, and this was a huge traumatic event for everybody in Israel, because we didn't understand what the hell was going on and how could this be possible. And immediately I started shifting in. It was just incredible and so devastatingly sad how parallel this discourse is to survivors and to rape and to sexual assault in general. The fact that nobody was able to protect us, the fact that nobody was there for us, the fact that all this trauma that was going on was, afterwards, all the images that are being used as rape as a weapon of war. It was clear to me that this was going to be majorly triggery for any of the survivors. And we were also petrified as a country and as individuals of what the Hamas was going to do with the people that they captured, the people that they before they killed, while they abused and tortured. So we were immediately pushed into emergency mode in general. We had millions and millions of calls, spillover calls, first of all, because we have an expertise in trauma. We were immediately consulted by lots and lots and lots of organizations and individuals who weren't able to get through to Iran and Natal, which are national hotline crisis, because they were so inundated with what was going on. So we were getting calls, I mean, from people in safe rooms and people in shelters because they didn't know what to do and where to turn. Miriam said this once, and other people said it. Unfortunately, the government didn't function then and is still not functioning now. And civil society has taken upon themselves to just step up in every single aspect of Israeli society. It's actually one of the hugest parts of this tragedy. So in addition to getting the hotline spillovers that we had for general trauma, we've gotten lots and lots of survivors who this whole thing has been really, really triggery for. Either they've been abused now in these horrible atrocities, or stuff has been coming up. Or unfortunately, another part that people don't want to talk about is these people who have been evacuated to these other spaces, or people who have been forced to go back to their homes because they don't have a safe space, they don't have a bomb shelter, are also being very vulnerable right now to sexual assault or to other kinds of
Meaning
abuse.
like younger people who were living independently away from their abusers are now stuck having to live
Are now
back
stuck
maybe
having
with
to live back with the abuser, live back in the safe space. And we've also heard stories of people who go to places to help these people with the evacuated people, and on those places, in those close corners, under all that pressure, there unfortunately has been abuse there as well. So we immediately shifted right into being there. We also had to take care of our volunteers because they are citizens of the country as well. All of them were in huge trauma. As Leah said, there's not a house in Israel that doesn't know somebody who was murdered, who's missing, who was taken hostage, who's in reserve duty right now. The whole country is under this huge amount of trauma. Now, we normally deal with trauma as we talk about trauma, we normally talk about post-trauma, but the country now is in trauma. We're not talking about post, we're talking about this event that's ongoing trauma. And it sits on the national trauma as we have as a country. So if we have from the Holocaust, and we have from all these terrorist attacks, and we have from different wars, and we have from all the trauma that this country has gone through, and then we talk about our safe space that's supposed to be our home, that's totally not a safe space. And the infiltration of terrorists into these homes has just been shocking and terrifying for Israelis in general, and definitely for people who are survivors of sexual assault. So we on the lines, we have, as I said, the spillover calls, we have people who have been triggered, we have survivors of people who have been abused right now, and we have people who are being abused in the safe homes as well. We've been doing tons from the first day. People have been turning to us to do resilience workshops, because all these people who are on the front line have been working, as you heard, 24/7. If it's Zaka who's looking at the bodies, if it's journalists, if it's social workers. So we actually have been stepped up, and we're trying to help the helpers. We've been doing a lot of trauma, resilience kind of, how would you say chosen? Resilience, I guess. Resilience kind of workshops, to be there for the people who are doing all this incredibly difficult and challenging work. Our support groups that we have for our survivors, we from day one, we kept on having them all, even though we're under attack and sirens and running in and out. We've also added at least something like 5 more support groups because the need is so great. We're doing some sort of collaboration with the Army right now for a testimony project that we have. We have a general testimony project where survivors can come and tell their story. So now we've written up a protocol for the general testimony, and we've been taking testimony of people from the general trauma, not just sexual trauma. In addition to that, our staff has just been 24/7 on the hotlines. We've been helping out. We have a huge network of organizations that we work with. So if it's the social worker at the Abu Kabir, which is the forensic center, we had at least 5 volunteers for the past 3 weeks in with the pathologist identifying bodies. You can't really say bodies, parts that couldn't be identified at all, so that they'd be able to share with the families and be able to have people know what happened to their loved ones and have this identification happen. We're just being challenged on every level possible. If all the women that were supposed to be filing complaints in the police, or men who are abused, It's been extremely challenging because the police have been moved into other emergency positions, and they're not able to be there to file complaints. So we have a lot of just holding all these women throughout all these processes. And in general, we're doing lots and lots of education to try to support the teachers, which is also a mess as well. You know, every day you get messages that school is opening, it's not opening. All these parents who are home with their kids, they don't know how to deal with the situation. The kids have no framework. You have to understand that they basically haven't been in school because we had summer vacation. Then they had a few days of school, and then when they went out for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, there was a bridge over to Sukkot, and then right after that, the first day that everyone was supposed to go back, there was no school as well. So we're also offering programs for teachers and for kids, and trying to just be also there for all of our volunteers who are also members of this entire national trauma.
Thanks, Miriam. And just, yeah, I think it's one of the little things people don't realize is that throughout major swaths of the country, kids are not necessarily going to school every day because they're rotating in because there's not enough room in the bomb shelters. So in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, many schools are doing it 2 days a week for the kids, and also because the staff is reduced. So Clara Walney did not sign up for a war. She signed up for a year course, right? And so did you pack for a war? This is really quite a thing. Tell us a little bit about what your experience has been like on your course, Clara.
Yeah, one of the year course participants who's still in Israel, unfortunately enough, at Kibbutz Keturah. So pre-war, like my goal for year course was to be in Israel for 9 months and to kind of experience as much as I could and have as many new experiences with Israel, with just the country in general and the people and all the things that this gap year could bring to me before going to college. And so in that same sense, to end Sukkot and to celebrate Simchat Torah, majority of year course is actually in Tzfat because Tzfat is the place to celebrate Simchat Torah. And we were all having probably one of the best nights year course has ever had, dancing and drinking and eating and just kind of finally getting into that community rhythm as we'd finally known each other for about 6 weeks, and we're finally solidifying our friends and our place within our own community. And then as teenagers, we all put our phones on silent, set an alarm for 8 a.m. the next morning when we had to be at mandatory services, and instead woke up to about a billion notifications, roommates swearing, knocks on doors, checking if everyone was okay, and just a flood of missed calls. And that was terrifying. I knew coming into the gap year program that there hasn't been a single year I've been alive that year course has not, that Israel has not had any sort of attack or bombing or rockets or anything. But in no way did I imagine that I would be in this situation. It's been really scary.
So you guys moved down to the kibbutz, and what kind of work are you doing?
Yeah, so about 4 days into the war, we moved down to Kibbutz Keturah, and I've been here ever since. And kind of going with Kibbutz Keturah's efforts, we've been helping kind of fill in the gaps that some of the kibbutz members who had to leave were filling. So anything from date fields to kitchen to helping with displaced families, and specifically, I've been working with either kids on the kibbutz who are either kibbutz families or relocated families, just kind of bringing back an element of time away from your family and parents to do something fun and get your mind off of it, whether that's like an art class or a dance class, or just kind of like skipping around, walking and talking, which is really important for kids and also really important for the parents to not have to be thinking about everything that's going on top of watching your kids. And then on top of that, We've been opening distribution sites for clothing. We've been volunteering at neighboring kibbutzim, and we've been packing food and supplies to soldiers and families. And finally, most recently, I've been helping out at a school nearby, just being a teacher's assistant and helping out as kids are just not the same as they were and need more support than they initially needed.
Thanks. That's just amazing that that your experience of this. So I think we probably have time to go through one more round before we open up for questions. And I'm just going to do something and say, like, you can keep it short if you can, because we will have time. But what is like the most important thing you want people to go away from this knowing about your work? And let's just go in the same order that we just went into. Just, you know, if you had one thing that you need people from outside of Israel to know, what is that thing? Can you start?
I think that with the biggest, I think, shock we've ever had in Israeli, the biggest national trauma we've ever experienced, you can also see the good. And I think solidarity that you wouldn't see anywhere else is just everybody took a step forward. Nobody took a step back. People could have run away, but no, we have 150% people volunteering to fight, and whoever can't fight does something for somebody else. And I think that's the most miraculous thing I've ever seen. I knew our women are amazing, but I think they even surprised me. Just really for a month, they've been working all the time to just, what can we do more? And it comes from us, for example, as an organization, we actually paid for people of Ofakim to stay in their hotel because the government wouldn't pay for it and they were about to evacuate them. So we had to pay for it. Or our our leaders in Netanya are making kindergartens in the hotels, 0 to 3, because again, the government's not doing it. So they're stepping up and we have volunteers to just hang out with the babies. So I think with all the bad and the trauma we've been going through, just it's amazing to see how the people have reacted and how everybody has just come together. And it's really, you move from crying from the trauma and the horrors to crying from the goodness of people. That's, I think, our two extremes right now. And you move from it, they like from minute to minute, that's where I feel myself going from back and forth. So I think that's something that it's important for you guys to know.
Yeah, it's important to know. So Amit, can you just
Yes. So I think one important thing that's probably not the main thing that's talked about is the place of the Palestinian citizens of Israel in this situation. From the first moment, there was a lot of fear for another scenario like May 2021, and we had Minister Ben Gvir talking about it and distributing weapons, and there was a lot of fake news about Palestinian citizens trying to attack. Now, of course, there's events from all sides, and there's you can tell stories from here to there. But what I would like to emphasize from our work is that the spirit of volunteering that Liat just talked about, it does not skip the Arab society in Israel as well. And I can tell you from our experience with the Ajial movement that have thousands of Chanichim all over the country and hundreds of Bugrim, all very much wanting to take part in volunteer activities, in support work for all the society. Their communities have been hit as well, specifically Hura and Rahat, places down south where missiles have hit, people have been killed, people have been kidnapped. And these people in general are taking part and taking a stand within the situation. And I think it's not something to take for granted. There's a lot of, I think, of forces driving it to the other way and trying to create more tension, specifically political forces. But I think if you look at the mainstream of citizens here, they feel attacked and by Hamas as well, and they are appalled by the massacre as well. And I hope it will stay like that, and I see it as part of our mission.
Thanks. Miriam, just very briefly, is there something you wanted to add?
I think that, as I said before, when we're talking about, there's a lot of things that are parallel to sexual assault survivors and in general what's happening in Israel. The center was established 45 years ago under the slogan, "You're not alone." And I think that one of the things that resonates with a lot of us right here with sexual assault crisis victims and in general is the feeling that we weren't protected, we were left alone. And right now, one of the most important things is to know that there's solidarity. And that I think one of the biggest disappointments that I'm feeling, and I know a lot of people with us from the feminist movement, from human rights organizations, from all these people around the world, are just basically making us, there was a massacre, but there was a travesty, but there was atrocities, but, and that's one of the most inconceivable things as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's part of, they talk about the strength of the Israeli society. And I think that part of what we need is to know that just like sexual assault survivors, that we're not making this up, we're not imagining, we don't need to show the proof of what happened more than we have, and that it's really, really important to have the support and the solidarity.
Would anybody else like to add to that? You guys, Leah and Clara?
Listen, it is, it is rather strange that only, I don't know, the week before October 7th on, Shabbat afternoon, just like every other week, we would go down to the road and have our flags and our signs and demonstrating against the judicial reform or overhaul or whatever it was. And 6 months ago, if you asked me how I felt about Israeli society or even the Jewish community around the world, I would say we are so splintered, we are so divided, and we are so, not together. And it is very, very not disappointing. It's tragic the way that so many people in the world are looking at us now. We're looking at us, not only us Israelis, but us as Jews. And knowing that there are other Jews around the world who are with us and who are as appalled and mortified and hurt and in trauma, as Miriam said, as we are, is somehow comforting to us. And not only are we, I think, as a nation really united in trying to help each other out, because that's the only thing we can do now. And so many of us are in such pain and this is not going to be a short recovery period. It's really not. It's going to be, I look at some of these children who are here on the kibbutz and who I know the things that they've seen, and I just cannot imagine. I mean, even yesterday here, we had our first little, rocket, and it was knocked down. And, my granddaughter was like, what? And it was nothing, but it's going to be with her, and it's going to be with all of us and our children. And it's just, I don't know how we're going to get through this, but I know we're going to get through it more and stronger if we can stay together. and somehow just be here to support each other. And knowing that there are people from outside the country also supporting us, it does help. It does.
Yeah. So we're 30 days into this. I mentioned that, Dunkirk was evacuated in 9 days and everybody, gave it their all, and then they could celebrate and relax or, heal the injured people. But it's 30 days and I don't think any of us see anything happening, changing or getting better. So you guys are in emergency mode and dealing on emergency level. How do you see going forward in terms of resources? And here, let me just open this up, like maybe put up your hand if you want to be the one to answer now. We don't need to keep going around like that. Miriam, how are you doing with resources? How are you seeing this going?
That's one of our biggest challenges, especially for organizations that are not actually, one of my donors basically said to me, I'm sorry, but you can't compete with the bodies. Literally, that's what he said. And we are dealing with bodies as well. The soul, we're dealing with souls, and it's extremely difficult. The government cut us back by 30% right before this war broke out. We have a huge fundraising event that's like this huge big happening that we normally do in December that can't exist now because of the war that's going on. All of our income generating activities are stopping. And most of fundraising right now is going to extremely, very, very important stuff, essential stuff, the army and the Magen David and all that. But we're being extremely, very, very, very challenged right now to be there to be able to do the work that we do. So it's a big challenge.
I would imagine that's affecting everyone. Does anyone have a different answer that would be useful for our people who are listening? Basically, nobody knows how they're going to get through this, and all of the philanthropic community is tapped. So
I
wherever
must say that all nonprofit organizations that I know, we have to furlough people who is also, it's not enough that they're having this huge trauma. Now we have to furlough them. All the nonprofits, the entire third sector is under.
Who among you is dealing? There's a question here about American trauma specialists. I know of one, Lisa Flegel, another young Judean who is in Eilat and giving some of her wisdom there. But in general, the idea of bringing she's sitting next to you. It would be the idea of bringing resources from outside, human resources from outside, volunteers. Is that relevant in your organizations? Are they going to be useful? Or are they going to get in the way?
If you're talking about trauma, Dafka, a lot of times the American organizations turn to us, or even like when it happened in Ukraine or Serbia or things like that for specific trauma. But there's resources like pathologists or those kind of stuff, which have flown in and helped. And there's all different kinds of the trauma here is just, it's very, very particular it's very, very culturally oriented. It's very particular to the national psyche. There's definitely things that are similar to trauma in general and in war zones and stuff like that, but it's very particular to what happened here.
So it's what I love is everyone's just saying, okay, where can I give money? I'm just looking at the questions that are being asked, but which is very important. So like with Hashomer Hatzair and Bonot Alternativa, what tools are you using to run these? Basically you need to be incredible logistics and coordinating, wizards for this. How are you doing this? Like, just in terms of technically, like give us an example of like just how you are delivering these this services and care on an organizational level. What tools are you using, for example?
I can take this, Amit, if you so you can go after if you'd like. So we basically pretty early on, at first we're in a situation room with all the other organizations, then we kind of took our own situation room to focus on the stuff that we're doing.
And is situation room, is that just an Israeli concept, or I guess it's international? What we call it a war room, right? So it's just like everybody comes with their computers and all resources and gets together. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah. So And we have, again, like I said, our network was pretty solid coming in. So it's just kind of utilizing the network we had into our needs right now. And luckily we have in Bunot Alternativa, so we have kind of all the range of all the different professions. So we have high-tech people to help us, to women that help us with, let's say, Mondays or different types of organizational tools to help us kind of get the volunteers to where we need them. So we're really using everything we can and what we have to make it as efficient as possible. And I think the hardest thing maybe is the fact that the needs keep constantly changing. What was true 3 weeks ago is not true right now. So we have to work all the time, just really be creative and on the go, and to kind of figure out what's right for now, and being in constant contact with the evacuees and figuring out what they need, and just that back and forth is really important. So that's what we're doing right now.
So
But
on a
again,
really
it changes all the time too.
So just bringing it into a really specific question, here's a question that someone's asking, after thanking everyone. My daughter wants to send care packages to kids and families in need, stuffies, books, games, a letter. I know sending money is the best way to help, but that's hard to explain to a 9-year-old. She wants to send something physical to show her love. Is this something we can mail to one of your efforts? Would it be welcome? Any takers?
I think so. I mean, we can maybe
Yeah.
connect later, and we can, we'd love to.
Yeah, us too. Bunot Alternativa, and we can.
I wanted
Look,
also,
it has someone. I don't. Can you hear me? Yeah, one of the problems has been that people have sent all kinds of things, and the donations weren't in such a way that they were accessible to people. And I think that Clara was referring to this before. One of the things that we've done in our region and also in Eilat, and as Miriam said, a huge number of the kibbutzim who were affected. We have a particular, a very strong relationship with kibbutz Nir Oz, which is one of the kibbutzim that really a quarter of their population was either murdered or taken captive. One of the members of our kibbutz has been assigned as the sort of the liaison of that kibbutz. They're in a hotel in Eilat, and we have volunteers that go and work with them. And they come up to the kibbutz and they use the swimming pool. By the way, we've kept our swimming pool open, even though I know it's cold where a lot of you might be hearing this. It's still warm enough to swim in the swimming pool at Kibbutz Torah. And we decided with the extra expense to keep the pool open. And it's a breath of fresh air for all these, for these families who are just, they're in such a strange place in a tiny little apartment. At least they have wide open spaces here and a swimming pool and soccer field. And at any rate, we have been taking all kinds of donations, organizing. That's one of the things that the Judeans did, or the kids from Year Course did, was to help organize things and in such a way so that people can come and take what they need. So yeah, we'll be willing to take donations of things. Of course, everybody's willing to take money because, feeding and housing and educating and providing quality activities and buying routers and television screens, because we want families, the parents to be able to work, and we want kids who do have classes that, like Miriam said, some of the kids do have school, but they've got to be able to connect by Zoom in order to. So we've been providing all of this for the families that have come down to be with us. And this also, everybody is strapped, and it's I will say we took people in without thinking about how we're going to pay for it. And I think that that's a strength also of being in a community like ours, or being in communities. But it doesn't hurt to help people, have people help us, help others.
I think very straightforward to answer the question. As I also have very young family members who want to send me everything. Absolutely. If your daughter or other families want to send something, absolutely do it. But remember that just because you send a box of 1,000 things doesn't mean that's kind of what we need or what families here need. if you want to make like, think about like gift bags almost that we can then distribute, that'd be a lot easier than kind of sending a mishmash box of everything you can think of that we could possibly need, because then it turns into what we had to do at the beginning, which is go into mass rooms full of boxes of just stuff and just kind of sort through everything to then make it accessible to people.
I think
Giveable.
also, I think
Something you can
the
easily give
biggest
to
gift,
somebody.
I think the biggest gift is the support. I want to tell you guys a story so the 9-year-old can understand how just her letter will be more than enough. My best friend's kid, who's 10, he's the age of my twins, my boy and girl. He drew a kind of a picture for the soldiers, because all the kids in Israel send gifts to the soldiers, and they send their kind of letter to them. And he drew this fun kind of cartoon, and he said he wishes that, you know, they would have made up like these robot soldiers so they don't have to fight, and he hopes that they'll be safe. And so one soldier got this, and he was looking for the kid that drew that, and he posted it online, and after an hour of it spreading in every single media outlet in Israel, he found my best friend's kid. His name is Dan. And that reunion between the soldier and the kid that drew the drawing made everybody happy for an hour, and it was amazing. And so I think the support is so important, and if kids want to send their pictures, we'll make sure somebody gets them. If it's the kids of the evacuees, if it's the parents, whoever she wants to send it to them, I think that's even more important than the toys. So just know that the support is huge.
It means a lot. I agree. Amit, I know this isn't your main focus, but I do know that because you guys are involved in the kibbutz movement, you have also people trying to help rescue the agricultural sector, which was hit obviously in any area that was affected by this. I can tell you that my supermarket limited the number of cabbages one could buy early on. What can you tell us anything about about what's happening in the produce area and just in general in agriculture?
So yeah, you're right that it's not like a main thing that we're like working on or that I personally know about, but it's true that a lot of the agriculture in Israel comes from that area, a lot of the vegetables specifically, less the fruit. And in the beginning, it really turned into a crisis, and there's a lot of people now, whole operation, volunteers, just going to work there in the agricultural fields and orchards. And we also send out their teams from the movement. This week, people will be working on the avocado, or I think it's an orchard of Niroz. But yeah, it's a big deal and certainly a big part of the volunteering that's happening in the country.
Thanks. Okay, I think we've touched.
I just want to say one more thing about the agricultural sector. And I think a lot of people haven't really talked about it too much, but there were a lot of Thai workers who were also slaughtered at the massacre on October 7th and who have also been taken captive. And many of the Thai workers who are, what can I tell you, backbone of Israeli agriculture are leaving. I don't blame them. And that's when it's going to be a big problem. And therefore, a lot of the universities haven't started yet. And I know there are a lot of students who are picking vegetables. And listen, the young Judeans, they came here. It took me back 30 years. They were picking melons at Kibbutz Grofit. I was very proud of them. And we finished the melon harvest, and we had Air Force kids picking vegetables. But it's going to be a big problem, and we should be praying for those Thai citizens also to be released, just as we're praying for all of the other hostages to be released.
Amen. And I'm going to hand this over to David, but I want to thank all of you. I want to thank those of you who are coming. I mentioned how valuable the value of community is at the beginning, and that's very much something that was cultivated for me in Young Judaea. And the other value is the value of action, of taking action. I think this is really all about how people are, oops, we seem to be losing people because this is ending. David?
He's just unpinning us. So
Oh, sorry.
focus.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to say that, I don't think that the line between Israelis and those of you who care deeply about this place is as thick a line as we believe. And I know that, we're connected in familial ways, not just, whatever ideology you may have, but literally have people you love here. It's family. And I know, I'm confident that I have a deep feeling that the response outside Israel is a response of family. And I know that this is a relationship that's being reset in some really, really important ways. So thanks for being here, and over to you, David.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And what you said about family rings really true. I think I was recently quoted in Times of Israel talking about family. These past 4 weeks for us on this side of the ocean has been incredibly difficult, and we just got a tiny insight into what the challenges you're all facing. In that first week of the war, we lost 4 Tel Yehudah staff and former campers, and felt that incredibly personally, felt that to be our family. And so I'm really thankful to be inspired today by, and I think it was Liad who talked about the good that's happening, and that's inspiring. Doesn't make it all easier, but it is certainly inspiring. Want everybody to know, because a lot of people have asked questions about how do we get in touch with these organizations? How can we be supportive? How can we send them money and toys? We will be sending out information tomorrow morning about all the organizations, and certainly all worthy of your support. I know a lot of people are making decisions about what to do with their money right now, with their resources, and I think a lot of us are just trying to reach deeper than we've ever reached with both our voices and our pocketbooks. I wanted to let people know that on the 14th, which is a week from Tuesday, there'll be a mass mobilization in Washington, and Young Judaea will be part of that mass mobilization. So if you're in this part of the world, there are people getting on planes to come as well. We'll have a lot more information about that in the next 48 hours. And if people are interested in additional programming, want to hear more from other organizations, other topics, please let us know at Young Judaea and at Tel Yehudah so that we can continue providing that. It's one of the things we can do, at least here. And I'm just real thankful to everybody on the panel today. Amit and Liad, welcome to Young Judaea. You're now Judeans, the rest of you.
Yes.
I have on this call my madrachot, my merakzot, my friends, my chanichot, all on the same call. And we've I tell you who we started in 1948, familiar year. So we've been together for this 75 years and continue to be together. So thank you, everybody, and look forward to an email tomorrow with more information. And I apologize if we didn't get to your questions today. Please feel free to send them to us, and we can send them off to the panelists as well. And hoping for more peaceful times for all of you in Israel, for everybody in Gaza also. May quieter and more peaceful times come soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Amen.
Thank you.